Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bitamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And this is our weekly video. Every week we take a look back and see what went on over on eBay, what went on in the Asian art category, Catawiki, what happened on the Bitamount.com global member pages, what auctions that are coming up. There's a lot going on right now. We're sort of we're getting on the ides of heading into the beginning of Asia Week in New York, and the major auction houses are getting back to work. Well, a couple of things I wanted to mention on that. The catalogs are not available online yet, but we'll post them to the site as soon as they become available, and we'll, of course, do a preview of the sales, go through some of the lots, the things we like in particular. It looks like they have a good lineup. One of the things I wanted to mention was, as a little news, Rick Cervantes, who had been originally with the Freeman Auction Gallery in Philadelphia years ago. He then migrated over to Heritage when they were looking a few years ago, and they were looking to get an online presence going. He was able to do that, and he's just been, last month, he became the head of the Chinese and Asian art department at DOYLE, New York. And if you don't know Rick, you should get to know him. He's a great guy, easy to deal with. As a matter of fact, I talked to him this morning. He's coming back from his vacation, and he's very excited to be working at Doyle's. And I hope we'll be doing actually a bit more with them in the things they offer, because they sell great things, and they are well worth checking out every time you look at an auction online or looking in New York for a sale to go to. So check that out. They have a good sale coming up also. A number of good items. One of them is this underglazed blue 9 peach dish. Looks like an old nice Ming example in their next sale. Their sales aren't up yet either. I know they're going to start working on them next week. And then there's this beautifully done Scrifario Famille Rose medallion bowl, Daoquan mark and period, blue interior, nicely done. And that's the kind of thing they'll be putting up in their sales during the September Asia Week. Christie's and Sotheby's are both getting to work. This is the Sotheby's page. They've got a lot of good things. One of them is a very nice collection a private collection of Kangxi wares, including some very good examples of peach bloom. If you're interested in peach bloom and examining them and learning about them, they have some excellent examples. And also a number of things, the jades from the Stephen Jungkook collection. Those of you that have followed these videos or have followed the New York sales for any length of time are very familiar with Stephen Jungkook. He was a wealthy Midwesterner who owned a tool and die company back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and he invested a huge amount of his time collecting Chinese and Asian works of art in general. He was particularly well known for his bronzes and metalwork and stone sculptures, early stuff. And when they've been brought to auction, they've done very, very well. And both Christie's and Sotheby's have handled parts of his collections over the years. The family sort of divided them up between the two. This time around, it's at Sotheby's, and it's his jade collection, which is quite stupendous. And you want to check that out. Christie's is getting to work. They're getting ready for their Asia Week online offerings, and we'll learn more about how they're going to go about this. They also have some very, very good sales, important Chinese works of art, and they have more of part of the collection of the Alsdorfs. You'll see part 1 and part 2 here. Now, James and Marilyn Alsdorf, it was our well-known Chicago family. They were cross-platform collectors. There was an article last fall in ArtNet about them. Mr. Alsdorf passed away a number of years ago, to over 20 years ago, and his wife Marilyn just passed away last summer in 2019, and they announced that their entire art collection was going to be auctioned at Christie's. And in this collection, they had everything from, as you can see, from Frida Kahlo, George O'Keeffe to Asian art. They bought what they liked. They had an unbelievable sense of taste, and they bought great things. Here they are in an old photo taken from 1950, right before they got married. And he was a wealthy Chicago business guy, and they built a fabulous collection together, and Christie's is going to be selling all of it. All right, and this is part 1. This is this is bronzes in Chinese works of art. There's a second part 2 with more sculpture and so forth. Some very rare bronzes, and this fantastic-looking marble Sui dynasty head right here that's going to be sold of Buddha. All right, so we'll be covering that. We will do videos on these sales as the catalogs become available and more images are up. We'll do our regular look at them. We'll go through each sale, talk about the estimates, talk about the pieces, and go into some detail. And this is the front page of the Kangxi collection that Sotheby's is going to be selling. As you can see, there's some very rare examples here. And then there's another page devoted already to the Jungkook sale with just a few pieces from his collection on it. Of course, many more will be appearing. And then important Chinese works of art has some fantastic pieces at Sotheby's. And Christie's has a similar series of lineups. They don't have quite as much online yet, so I'm not able to share it with you. But we'll get back into it as soon as it becomes available, I promise. All right, and now over on the bidamount.com global member pages, this is the Christie sale we talked about last week. A couple of people emailed me; they were confused because it's so close to Asia Week. This has nothing to do with Asia Week, unless you want to call it sort of a 2 or 3 week prior kickoff to it, I guess. But this is an online only sale that they're running, and it ends on September 3rd. It does not end during Asia Week. So you want to check it out, take a look at it. It's on the global pages. There's a lot of interesting stuff on here, some very nice examples. And these are at more moderate price points, if you want to put it that way. These are not things that are going to sell for $100,000, $200,000. These are things more in the $2,000 or $3,000 to $20,000 range typically. All right, but some good examples. A lot of things for under $10,000, and some very nice lots. All right, if you're a dealer and you like to buy lots, because all dealers do, because you get to break them up and you generally can make money with them, check out this sale, because there's a number of pretty generous lots in here, as you can see. Multiple items, and sometimes you can pick them up for a very good price where you can resell and make some money. All right, and then over on the global pages, we have featured the Rago sale that's coming up in just a few days on the 26th, and in it is this very nice big pair of Famille Rose Mandarin vases. They're about 5 inches tall. They look to be in excellent shape, and so forth. There is a pair of vases on there, by the way, and some of you may have seen them, and they look like they're selling them as Chinese Amari. They're double gourds and so forth, and I looked at them, and I thought they looked a lot like Kutani, and I asked them to send me pictures of them, and they did, of the bottom of the foot rims, and I'm not sure how old those are, to be perfectly honest. They're very convincing, but I was thinking maybe they were an early pair of Kutani vases, but let's see if we can find them here quickly, and I'll show you the vases. Initially, we thought they were okay, and then we started looking at them very carefully. And we have our doubts about the age of these vases. I think they're superbly well done, but they're not Kangxi, and they're not terribly early. I'm not quite sure what to think of them, but I'd take a pass on them if I were you. All right, they're very pretty. If you want to make lamps out of them, they go for $500. Buy them. But other than that, I would stay away. And they're also very large. They're like 19 inches, so a little caution there. The other thing that we added over on the global pages was this, that Material Culture is an auction house in Philadelphia. They deal in textiles and carpets, but they deal in Central Asian and Asian textiles, Chinese carpets, Turkoman pieces, things like that. And if you have an interest in those, you want to check out the Material Culture auction, because they have quite a few good Chinese rugs, and they have some very nice Turkoman pieces, especially this Yomuchu wall from the late 19th century. Nice colors, good condition, good pile, and fairly reasonable estimate. It's got one bid. It's at $400. It's an $800 to $1,200 bag. Good looking thing. You want to check those out. All right, and then over to this. This was a sale that we mentioned. We touched on last week. There's a very rare Dwan stone in this auction. This is the McGinnis sale up in Massachusetts here, over in Amesbury. And he had a very rare carved Dwan stone plaque that they listed as Japanese. Or Asian, or so generic, with a $200 to $400 estimate. It's a $5,000 to $7,000 plaque. It's a nice one. I would recommend, if you buy those, check it out. And they also listed this as a Chinese scroll. And those of you that know the market a little bit, you know right away on a glance that this is a Japanese falconer's painting. It's a famous motif. They did many of them. But this looks like a nice one. And it has an opening bid of just $500. It's beautifully framed. You might want to check that out. And Rago also has this nice Han Dynasty green glazed Huform vase. And that seems to be a good example right there. And also, don't forget the rest of the part 2 of the Brian Page sale coming up at Marsan over in Bath. That's a good auction also, and there's some interesting objects. And they have in it the 2, I love them, those 2 Blanc de Chine incense burners that went through last time. Apparently the bidder didn't pay for them, so they're reoffering them. But they're still wonderful, they're still good. Give them a shot. All right, and then over here to eBay for this past week, we had this. This was featured on the newsletter page at Bidamount because we just liked it. I just liked it. It was a nice transitional period blue and white jar, and what I liked about it was a Qing example. On the back, you have the big palm trees, and then on the front, let's see, we're gonna get back to it. Hold on. There it is. There's the Qing. All right, and a couple of people asked me, I got a couple of emails, inquiries about it because they thought it was a funny looking foo dog. And this is a Qing. And the easiest way to spot the difference between a Qing and a foo lion, because often they look somewhat similar, is that the Qings all had scales on them like fish. They have these spiny sort of flaming backs on them and hoof feet. All right, and that's one of the ways you can identify them. But this was a nice example, and it ended up doing just fine. It brought $6,700, which is not unusual for a well-decorated, deep cobalt-colored jar from this period, circa 1650. Nice example. It was about 10 or 11 inches tall. All right, and then over to this was that very cute. This was nice. This was a Famille Rose puzzle pot. The form is well known. We've covered them many times because there are people out there who just collect puzzle pots in all their different varieties. This was a Famille Jaune example made in the late 19th century, judging by the drawing and the color palette. This same color palette was also very popular on dishes and plates, export pieces made in the same time. But this is done obviously in this form, the puzzle pot form. These were also often done, as you know, most popularly done in Celadon with a splash of underglaze red on it, but they did them in many other palettes, including Famille Vert, and occasionally even you see them with sort of just a pure white glaze like Blanc de Chine. This was a nice one. It had a nick out of the enameling on the top, but that was about it. It was a good one. And I think somebody got a nice buy on this, $300 on the nose. And the shipping was pretty reasonable. This was from Wichita, Kansas, and the shipping from there to here, they've got posted at just $14, which is pretty good these days when you consider what the post office is charging for shipments across just the United States. All right, and then on to this. This was a charming little piece of faux bois. So a miniature planter. It was around 2.5, 3 inches tall, very small, very delicate, like a little gem. But it was nicely faux bois decorated and had a Qing marked base. It wasn't Qing, but the faux bois work became popular during the Qing period, and they did it on many things. And it just means to trick the eye. That's all it really means, faux bois. And there's the Qing mark on the bottom. But this is not a late Qing example. This is sort of an 1850s, I suspect, type. Judging by the way the mark is done, very good quality, and the faux bois can come in many palettes. I put aside this one for you to look at. This is an item from the Christie's online sale that's going on right now, ending on September 3rd. This is a faux bois done like fossilized stone. Very, very pretty, very unusual, and it's made to look like it's done out of rock, sort of with rocks encrusted into the porcelain. All right, this is a mid to late, just a Qing, 19th century Qing example with an $1,800 opening bid. But at any rate, back to this. This was a charming little example, and there are people out there who only collect faux bois pieces because they did them in a fairly wide variety of shapes, forms, and styles over the year, cups and bowls and so forth. And here you have a miniature planter, which I think is quite unusual, and it went for $510, which isn't bad. I think that was a nice little item to buy. All right, and then on to this, the Kangxi Famille Vert basket dish. This was a good one. This was one of those examples that had the grooved foot rim on the bottom. It was 13 inches in diameter. There, the foot, this sort of very smooth track foot that they put around them, like a double foot with unglazed trough in the middle. But be very careful when you see these foot rims. For many years, they didn't make copies of these really with this grooved out foot. It was fairly uncommon. And people often took the presence of this foot to be an absolute indicator that it's Kangxi. It is not any longer. All right, it is not any longer. The copyists and the fakers have gotten really good at copying them. One of the differences, though, I did notice on some of them was that the more modern pieces, the outer foot is at the same height on the copies as the inner foot. And on the old examples, the inner foot rim here tended to be slightly lower on most examples. It's not cast in stone, but it's a pretty good indicator. But if they're both of the same height, I'd be very careful of it. Okay, but this foot rim no longer means, oh, it's absolutely Kangxi. That's gone there, because the copyists have figured that out and have adopted that aspect as well. All right, it just keeps getting tougher every day, I'll tell you. God, clever bunch. And then on to this, the transitional period jar. This is a nice looking little pot, good deep cobalt. There were tiny bits of wear on the high edges and so forth in the glaze, but as you can see with the champagne bottle here, it's about the same. You know, it's a little under that. It was about 10 or 11 inches tall. Here's a picture of the bottom of it, slightly concave, very much cleaned up and sort of grooved out. Here's a picture of the interior and so forth. And it ended up doing pretty well. It ended up selling for $2,950, which is right in the range for these. These have turned up before. These sometimes examples of these have turned up in some of the well-known cargoes, the wrecks, the shipwrecks that they dig up. They find these jars in them because a lot of them were made for export. And then along over to this, the late Ming bronze incense burner. This was a nice little one. Had lots of legitimate looking wear to it. You can see all the residual polish, because many years ago, people always polished these. In the 20s and 30s, people that had bronzes like this often had them polished. People in the West, when they had cleaning ladies working for them and staff, they would polish the Chinese bronzes, which sounds horrible to us today, but it happened an awful lot. And even the ones that have been polished can still bring very good money, all right, at auction. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. But don't take evidence alone of old polish stuck in the cracks as indicating that it's necessarily old, all right, because again, fakers have learned to add polish, let it dry out, and fill in these cracks and make it look old. One of the things that this has, obviously, there's a fair bit of wear from all the polishing to the high points on the mask. You can see there's no sharp edges left anymore because it has been polished. And this nice looking rim, a little nick out of it right there, and then the interior with the blackened surface. Good looking brush, good looking incense burner. And somebody paid $1,718 for it, which is not a bad buy at all. That's a perfectly good buy. All right, these examples are highly collected these days, especially with all the copies that are floating around. A lot of copies, especially on eBay. For every 100 I see, only one of them is authentic. All right, and then on to this. The World Tour catalog. This is a 1930s photo album that somebody put together from going to China on part of a world tour. This was volume 2, so they must have had volume 1 was maybe some other country, but volume 2 was China. And I just love this because it's an old-fashioned scrapbook. Scrapbooking used to be a huge pastime for people, especially when they traveled. This was a nice big album, by the way. Good size thing. It is. What is it? Does it say how big the album is? No, it doesn't. All right, but I can tell you this album was about 16 inches wide, and it was just filled with fabulous photographs. Unfortunately, they didn't allow them to be enlarged, because I think there's some really good ones, especially of Chinese ruins and the old temples and so forth, and outside of the palace and so forth. And here are more of them, a few in color even. And somebody picked this album up for just $554. I think that was a great buy. I love these old picture books, because there's so much to see in them. You know, well, it's why we use the videos at the end, the old videos at the end of each one of our weekly videos. I just like them. And then on to this. This sold last week. It was a Kangxi period charger. The pattern is sort of a stock pattern. You see this pattern often on Chinese Kangxi wares, occasionally on incense burners, on plates and bowls and so forth. This was on a big charger. It was around 35 or 6 centimeters, 37 centimeters in diameter, which is, you know, roughly 16 or so inches. Nice looking example. And a couple of people really locked horns on it, and they paid $4,050. All right. It was a nice one, and that was a strong price. All right. And here's another one that went up. It's darker, also Kangxi, and ended up about the same size, but not quite as interesting to the buyers, I guess. Ended up selling for just $1,281, which was a perfectly good buy too. All right, not quite as good as the other one. All right, and then over here to this other charger. This was a early 18th century example done for the export market. It's got this nice diaper pattern, inner cavetto, and I love the trees, the way they're done. Nice use of negative space, very painterly. This was done by a very good, very sensitive painter, and it has this brown dressing on the outer rim that you see on these fairly often. It was 33 centimeters, so it's 13, 14 inches in diameter. Ended up selling for $1,005, which was perfectly fine. And it was the same seller. This is the Ancient Legends. It's the same seller that sold the other couple of pieces we looked at, the Kangxi charger that brought the 4,000. This was a very nice looking plate, and he got a good price for it. It deserved it. There was chargers are always worth more than, a 13-inch charger is worth a lot more money than a 10-inch dish in the same exact pattern by a multiple of 2 or 3. All right, because they just didn't make as many. That's as simple as that. For every one charger you see, you can find, 20 or 30 plates in the same pattern. All right, and then on to this, the little Lang Yao glazed washer. Somebody had put an incense burner top on it later, I suspect, but here's another shot of it. A nice old one, and the top is an old top. It's a 19th century top, judging by the way the endless knot is carved and the way the thing is grooved out in the surface, the patina. Good-looking example to make it work as an incense burner and so forth. There's the interior. It's got the iron red, it's got the copper red body, but then it has this celadon crackle glaze, which is something you also see on Kangxi pieces. And often people think because it has this green celadon crackle interior, it's Kangxi. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the case, but it means that it's old. And this is an early 19th century one, I suspect. And it ended up selling for $1,193. But a very attractive example. I think that was a good price. Scholars' objects always get a lot of interest. And then onto this was another table object, is this other brush washer in turquoise glaze, late Qing, but a good one, a very good one. Has a nicely done, thinly glazed interior with a few little bubble drips in it. And then the bottom of it is flat, concave. It's got a hint of clear glaze here and there on it. But very nicely levigated clay was used in making this. Not a lot of iron deposits. There's a few little burns here and there from the kiln, but you don't see a lot of iron pulling through, which is a good sign. It means it was carefully made. Here it is again. Here's a better shot of it. There's a slight hint of clear glaze or ash glazing. Something got on the paste, so it has a slight shine to it. But at any rate, it ended up selling for $363, which I think was an excellent buy. That's a nice table object. And these turquoise pieces are very popular because the turquoise glazes really first got a lot of use and so forth in the Kangxi period. They became very popular. All right, which was in the early 18th century. All right, and then on to this, the celadon ground Famille Rose planter. Almost looks like a cuspidor, but I guess it's not. But nicely done, and a good old one. It had a star crack on the bottom here, as you can see pretty obviously. It's a late 19th century example, but it was sort of an unusual form. It had this crack here in the body as well, but it was an unusual form. All right, just very interesting, big leaves, nicely done mass that had gilding on them originally, which had worn off. Here are the flowers and the birds and all that business. And I like the big flower, the big leaves they put on the top there to sort of frame it. And it ended up doing pretty well. It brought $310 with a hairline in the bottom and a body issue, but because it was an unusual form, I suspect. And then over here, the Kangxi export plate, nice looking example. This was a fairly big one. It was 10 or 12 inches in diameter, and it was in beautiful condition. And somebody picked this up for $200, 200 euros rather. That was a very good buy, all right? But the prices of there's a lot of these for sale right now. There's a lot of them in the Netherlands floating around, and the prices on them have gotten fairly soft. This one is 21 centimeters, so it's about 8 or 9 inches in diameter, but very reasonable purchase, 200 euros. And then over here to this was the Klampets bowl, one of those verted rim bowls with the inscription down the side. This was a nice one, and I think this went very reasonably. This was in good shape, and it went for 1,298 euros, or about $1,500 US, something like that. Often we've seen these in the past, and they've brought $1,800 to $2,400. So I think somebody got a very good buy on that as well. And then over here, the big Japanese vase. This thing was over 2 feet tall. It was, I think, how tall was this thing? Hold on, I'm going to get the measurements right for you. 61 centimeters, yeah, over 2 feet. All right, and this form of vase, this pattern with these vertical stripes down the side, and then all the little emblems and rondelles and characters, these often get misattributed as being Chinese. And I've seen them many times. People think they're just Chinese because they don't look that Japanese to them. Well, these are Japanese. They are Amari, type of Amari, made in the Arita area, and they were made mostly in the Meiji period. All right, they made a few after, but typically in the Meiji era, and they were often made in pairs, and they were heavily exported out of the country versus being kept in Japan. And this one sold for, look at this. This was a steal, 24 and a half, 25-inch vase in this pattern for 220 euros. All right, I think that was a great buy. It means it was less than $300, 300, maybe 360 with shipping. That was a good buy. It was a very, very pretty vase, really pretty. All right, Japanese stuff is so undervalued; it's just crazy compared to Chinese. All right, and then on to this, another good Japanese buy. I'm showing these because we have a number of people that do collect Japanese. But somebody missed these, a pair of Edo ewers, very nice quality. Beautifully done. They had one of them had a hairline at the mouth or something, but the pair, and these were 10 inches taller, so the pair sold for 200 euros. All right, for a pair. All right, which to me seems like an absolutely great buy. All right, and then on to what's coming up this week. As I mentioned, we had a lot of Japanese stuff on Catawiki last week. They had a lot of listings up. It made up about 2/3 of the newsletter page, just because they had so much stuff up, and I wasn't sure what not to include and what to include, so we included all of it. And as some of you noticed, it was a very long page, but there were some choice items in there. And one of the things that's coming up is this Meiji period, possibly early Taisho period, but circa 1890 to 1915, somewhere in there. Chinese-style bronze with this nice, deep, almost spinach green jade patina applied to it. The Japanese were just superb at this time of patinating bronzes, and this was an example. Just a great piece. And it hasn't sold yet. It's up to just 137 euros. It closes on Sunday. If you buy Japanese bronzes, you want to check that out. That's a fairly rare bird. All right. And then over here to this, another fairly rare Japanese thing is this very cool brush pot. And this is why it's a cool thing. Hold on. We're going to get to the fun imagery on here. It's a monkey brush pot. Come on. Where are the monkeys? There they are. 2 monkeys, one below, one above, and nice piece of Japanese Meiji period bamboo carving. Good table object, good scholar's object. It has the Greek key border, which they adopted into some of their work in the late Edo and into the Meiji period. You see it. You typically see this border more often on Chinese ceramics. Ming Celadons. I was looking at a Ming Celadon bowl the other day that had the same pattern. At any rate, this is up to 350 euros, but it's a nice scholar's object. And if you collect brush pots, this looks like a good selection. And don't be afraid to spend, $600 or $800 on it easily. It's got a good estimate of 900 to 1,000 euros, which I don't think is all crazy because it's a good, high-quality carving. All right, and then on to this, the Chinese Amari Kangxi bowl. When we saw this first, it was just at $1 or something, $1.25, and we threw it in the newsletter, and a lot of people have noticed it over the last week, and it closes on Sunday. It's up to $1,675. Night Heron Antiques has this. They're down in the southwest in New Mexico in the United States. And the other thing that I spotted this week, I just saw this morning, I hadn't seen it earlier, is this really nice 19th century double gourd cobalt underglaze and relief work, sort of cameo effect, slip decorated vase. Beautiful quality. And you look at the bottom of this, that looks like a nice first half of the 19th century foot rim. Very well done. It's got a Qin lung mark on it. They did do some of these in the late Qing dynasty too later on, but it's clearly a 19th century vase. Very desirable color, nicely done. It's about a foot tall. It's up to just $107. It closes tomorrow. All right, if you buy monochromes and you like these things, this is a heck of a thing. I would expect it. It should bring $800 to $1,000 pretty easily. We'll see. But that's a nice looking double gourd vase, really is. And then this is for those of you that like later Famille Rose Qing examples, is this very charming hot food pot with feet on it. And around the outside, it's got these figural scenes of immortals and scholars. And here they are looking at a yang and yin scroll. There's this fellow here. He's smiling up at the descending bat, which are, of course, good luck. And on and on and on. Nice looking top with Shao character cut into it in gilt. On the lid, there's a tiny bit of wear here, but not much considering its age. And here's some nice detail shots. The faces are nicely done. The hair is all very nicely done. Notice how the iron red that creates the facial expressions is very well done. The furrows in the brow and all that, and there's lots of gilding in the robes. This is getting some good attention. It's up to $3,100, and it closes Sunday, and I expect it'll bounce another 1,000 or so anyway. But very nice example. All right, and that's about it for the week. There's a lot going on, and we'll be posting the Sotheby's and Christie's catalogs and getting information up about the DOYLE sale and bottoms as it becomes available in the next couple of weeks. And if you haven't subscribed to us yet here on YouTube, please do. We do these videos every week. We love doing them. And visit us over at bitamount.com and see what we're up to. Check out the newsletter page. Subscribe to it. It's free to subscribe to the newsletter page. It always has been. And we put fresh stuff on there every Friday. And take a look at the global member pages if you're serious about buying online and want to save time and get to the good stuff right away. Because all the stuff on there we find and feature based on what we think of it, if it's okay or not, because the eBay, Live Auctioneers, and Valuable all have a problem with fakes and copies and so forth. And on our own site, we're working on it. I was just to bring you all up to date, I was working with one of the ladies who does all the coding and stuff, and they're working on, I don't know, FTP stuff and all, all that background stuff. It's coming along just fine, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have a mock-up to share and so it's going to look. And we're getting pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and you'll be able to sell an auction on there as you wish. And sign up will be free, of course, and we'll charge as low a possible fee as we can on the items sold, so that everybody doesn't feel like they're getting gaffed like they do everywhere else. All right, but it's going to be a good package, I think. All right, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all next week. And good luck out there. Hope you find something as we head towards Labor Day. All right, see you all later. Bye-bye.